You might argue there is a form of governance happening, even in Bitcoin. It's the actual code that is running and that constitutes how the network is operating. So there's not only the technical consensus, but there is also a social consensus around it. Governance in politics is a culture, it's a process. We want to do politics that is fit for our system and helps us to properly develop it. If we have a system that is taking too much energy from the people, they just drop off. The scaling of the system is also limited by the power to govern it. I tend to focus my work around helping governance bloom, basically. The whole Polkadot ecosystem is developing, and there is users joining, developers, protocols, companies are onboarding, and what I try to do with my time is help facilitate the process, bring people together. If they lack information, try to get them the right information. If teams are seeking funding from OpenGov, we consult them, we help them. I'm not sure exactly when the whole cryptography thing started. I mean, it started 2000 years ago or something. But in modern times, when cryptography researchers were giving examples to each other, I guess it's like maybe in the 50s or 70s, they were always making examples of A, B, and C, right? But then you get bored by saying A sends a message to B. So they give it a little bit of personality and they say Alice sends a message to Bob and then Charlie wants to listen in. This is sort of a little bit of a cultural thing in the computer security, cryptography community. And so because I've been educated in cryptography, I knew these examples and it was always a funny example. And so when I was joining Polkadot, I was still fully anonymous. And I wanted to have a username that signals to the OGs that I understand them and I speak the same language. But to everyone who is not super nerdy on cryptography, it should be like just captures your attention for 1 second longer because you think, are these two people? Is this a couple? Why is it Alice and Bob? It's just like funny little non-intrusive username. So I started out in crypto in 2017, invested a little bit in Ethereum and a few other coins. Mostly was reading the Reddit. For that was my source of information and wasn't super inviting to be there all the time. And then I slept through the bare winter, woke up way too late in 2020 and got a lot of FOMO because I was realizing, oh no, the bull market is in full progress and I've been sleeping. I should have known better. I was reading up and down the top 20 list of projects by market cap. And I was reading through Polkadot for the third time. And for me, this idea clicked of having this relay chain that is responsible for just securing the network, and it is not even doing smart contracts. And then you have all these parachains, and they are basically, you have this survival of this fittest, this competition of all the chains to deliver the best service. And coming with a little bit of an understanding in cybernetics, to me this sounded like a really good idea, because you have this encapsulation where you push a lot of the responsibility outside of the system, and the relay chain does just one thing and it does it really good, which is securing all the other chains. If a parachain is doing good work, it will survive, it will stay fit. And if it is not doing what the market needs or what people need, then it will drop out of the system again. So this idea really excited me. And then also this idea of interoperability between all the chains. Because it is an essential problem and it is a hard problem to tackle in blockchain technology. How can chains communicate? And so there was this project just focusing on this. And when it clicked for me, I could not sleep for 2 nights straight because my mind was making all these new connections and thinking about how this is a really innovative progression in blockchain technology. And I was so excited and had to read all the time about it. I started reading the Polkadot wiki. One of my first point of contact was actually PokeAssembly. So I got exposed to OpenGov really early. I started shifting a little bit of my positions into Polkadot because most of my stash was in ETH. And after some time, I was thinking about, okay, maybe I could run a Polkadot validator or Kusama validator. And I was running the economics, I was running the numbers and was thinking, okay, worst case is I just get out the same that I put in. So essentially there's little risk and I'm just learning to administer a server. So I started running this Kusama validator, and so I was thinking, okay, I need delegations. I need someone to vote for my validator to get into the system. And so I was thinking, okay, what is the thing that I can do good in this ecosystem where I can provide value so that people would delegate back? And that was basically doing content marketing. And so everything that I was learning, I was starting to create videos. So one of the parachain teams was actually reaching out to me and hired me for communications role. And so I was put into this situation of, should I quit my fairly safe job in IT to switch to Polkadot, and should I risk my career, so to say? But it was too interesting. So I took the step, got started. Over time, I became really invested in all the different aspects, especially OpenGov. I think I was always a political person. I was getting interested in politics with 14. My previous job, I was working for a political party for 6-7 years. For me, a political organization is an organization that helps people negotiate and come to an agreement about what they want to have. And so even in my role in the political party was to build technology that allowed you to communicate on specific positions and agendas. And you see a lot of things and you learn a lot about political structures and how they're operating. You see things that are running good, that are running bad. And especially the political organization I was with was a very young organization. So it was founded by people that have been with other parties before, but they were unhappy and they wanted to start their own political party and movement. And in most cases, this fails. I think the big reason for that is they don't know how to build an organization where you can mobilize people, where you can come to an agreement, and where you can still be effective and successful. Bring things into implementation or make them a reality. But I could watch this organization now and how they were doing this, how they were combining bottom-up elements with top-down leadership and make it work in a way where it was acceptable for people, where they said these are good things that are happening, and where they were popular enough to be voted into parliament. So I was observing a lot of the patterns, and I was very interested in the patterns that make a political organization successful. So when OpenGov started, it made sense for me. I could understand, people do this because of that reason, or this is their agenda. For example, a very typical thing is to think about people on the opposite side of a position, and if they oppose your opinion on a lot of issues, you start to think of them as either they're stupid or they're bad people. And these are the two recipes to sow discontent, Having a culture where you can view people as just having a different position, maybe because they're born with different filters or different values or opinions, and understand that they are not necessarily stupid or evil, but maybe just have a different opinion. I think this is super important because it helps you to work towards a consensus. And it is possible that some people are stupid or evil, but it should not be your first assumption. You need to figure this out over time. If people repeatedly act in a way where you say, this is not smart, or you have a hidden agenda, you're obviously doing something that is bad, you can sort them out or you can start to treat them differently. But I think the first assumption should always be that people have a good reason to think the way they think or to vote the way they vote. So it transitioned from council governance to OpenGov. And you could say this is a regime change. The way how governance was done before, decisions were basically put to the council. They did not have the last decision, but they had an influence over how easy or hard it was to get voted for something. Then, basically from one day to the other, OpenGov was introduced, and it allowed every token holder to decide on everything. But there was no guided process. There was no setting up of structure. There was no organizational development of the whole thing. And you have to consider these people don't have political experience. And so everyone was thrown into cold water at the same time. It was a very rough start, I would say. It's like having a toddler do all the baby steps, right? And what you have to do is you have to do a lot of mistakes to figure out what is bad and what is good. And in such a situation, if you're a thinking human, is you have to think, okay, what are the mistakes? How can we make sure we're not repeating the mistakes? So this first phase is very interesting. It's very exciting. You see dynamics pop up of how a group of people start to think. So for example, initially being negative on a lot of spending, then a movement popping up where high stakes voter comes in and says marketing is very important and we should focus a lot of attention on marketing. And a lot of opinions and feelings about how it is turning out, but having very little facts on your hands because there is not yet the tooling to get the facts. We want a lot of people to participate in OpenGov. And a requirement for that is that people are informed. Just surfacing the information that is already there but hard to find, summarizing it so that you don't have to spend 10 hours but only 1 hour, is super important and crucial. In Switzerland, there is a specific government entity that sends out books that informs people about what they can vote on in the next quarter. So creating this kind of transparency and simplicity and clarity is super important because it allows more people to participate. And we need more toolings that automatically show you what is happening in the treasury. And we also need a lot of manual work in summarizing it. So that is a prerequisite to have good governance and to have deliberation and not let this in-group of 5 or 10 people make the decisions because they just have all the time in the day to converse about it. So creating transparency is an ongoing process. And OpenGov.Watch is a project funded by the Web3 Foundation. It is our vehicle to help OpenGov and to get certain work done, like do regular reporting on what is happening in OpenGov. If you don't have the time to be there every day because you have a life and you have a job and you have a family, we give you monthly reporting so you can read up on the latest. We do quarterly treasury reports so you can get an understanding of what is the spending, in which categories is it going. But we also do prospective work. We offer free consultations for people that want to come to OpenGov and make a proposal without any specific agenda other than maybe helping connect people. If I think it's a bad idea, I'm getting better at telling people, I don't think this makes sense. Maybe if you do it in a different way, it makes sense. So I try to tell people, this is my opinion. I don't see the value in that. And basically also connect people when I see, okay, 3 different people have a similar project idea. I connect them and I tell, hey, maybe you want to talk. Maybe you want to set up something together. We push for a more strategic approach, an approach where we talk about what are the high-level goals and then connect it with the existing structures to bring more coordination. And then I think everyone has an agenda and everyone has a way how they think OpenGov should develop. Maybe you're a single issue person, you say marketing is most important, this, or tech is most important, and this. And then there are people that really try to see the big picture. And it's just a matter of personal preference. I also want to show people you can have an idea of what is the best path forward and articulate it. And you should not be scared because people think that you're trying to impose something on them. I don't have any hard power. I only have soft power. And most people don't have hard power in terms of token. Most people have soft power. And it is by articulating what you think the path forward should be and then be able to talk with people, form a consensus, update your own ideas because you didn't understand some stuff. And we see some really ingenious people in the ecosystem that only have soft power and have great influence. Parliament comes from the root of to talk, or parlare, something like this. So this is a forum where people are talking. And if you have politics, if you want to come to good decisions, you need to have an exchange of arguments. And it's in a way, it's really interesting when you are participating in such a discussion and you change in your mind because someone says something. And it's important to sometimes change your mind because someone says something. We are very lucky, I think, to have the Kussamarian doing Attempts at Governance, this weekly format, because it provides a parliament where we can discuss ideas. We are seeing that on the decision-making side, people are forming groups. We have decentralized voices. The Web3 Foundation is delegating tokens to groups of people or individual people, and it's 3-month rounds where they're changing the delegations also. So the idea is to mix it up a little bit and bring some fresh energy, some discussion into this, and force the process also into the public. One interesting property that we have in crypto technology, crypto means hidden, right? So voters can have a lot of tokens and can have a lot of influence, but be completely unknown who this party is, which is I would say, a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. It's a good thing because it allows you to have your stake and make your decisions without being harassed. But at the same time, we need open discussion in the public. It is what yields the best results. And I think it's also why democracy is a fundamentally good thing, because it allows more people to participate in the process. In our society, we have more globalized, more complex problems. And so we need more globalized, complex solution systems that can tackle all that complexity at the same time. Democracy is like the brain for society. Then every individual cell of your brain is another human that participates in the process. So if you get a lot of people to participate in the process and you find a good process to how they can negotiate solutions, this is basically building the brain for society. And so coming with this understanding of how I see politics and democracy coming into OpenGov, it's really inspiring, because you can see that governance is a decentralized process. Yes, we have this system where we do the voting, but at the same time, a lot of discussion happen in the background everywhere at once. And decisions can happen in parallel, work can happen in parallel without everyone knowing what is happening. So I think what it does allow us is to scale governance and decision making even beyond what you can do in traditional governance. And at the same time, it makes it harder to understand. It requires a new way of thinking about it. And it puts us in front of a lot of challenges. Polkadot intends to be a system that can facilitate a lot of Web3. And if we want to build such a system that scales to the whole planet, it needs to have a governance that is fit to act responsibly and act in the interest of this whole ecosystem. But OpenGov is 1 year old. It's a small child, right? So we need to get it to the point to grow up and to make up its mind about how it does things, to not burn out people in the process. And I'm looking at the systems and, first of all, trying to describe what I see and say, okay, so this is how it works right now. And listening to people, what ideas do they have? And always think about what is the next step in growing the system and growing up. In traditional politics, we see that we have a legislative, executive, and judicial branch. It doesn't have to be the same structure, but I want to see good structure happening in OpenGov. For example, just describing out for people, hey, we have some legislative work that we're doing and we have some executive work that we're doing. And just help people make this distinction. Because if you can make this distinction, it reduces confusion. It's two different questions. The legislative part has the question of, what do we want to do? It is about reaching for certain goals that you want to achieve. For example, the ecosystem should have great developer experience. And if it has great developer experience, a lot of people will build in Polkadot. So this is a goal. And then the executive part asks, how do we do it? How do we do it so that it costs little money, little time, little effort, human effort? Then you can understand, okay, we can delegate some of the tasks, and maybe we want to have a committee of people that we trust because they're professionals, and so we give them some amount of tokens or stable coins, and then they have a certain mandate to get certain jobs done. In Polkadot, these are bounties, for example. So describing that bounties are part of the executive structure helps your mind to reduce the complexity and say, okay, today I think about the executive part and I think about how can we make bounties better. If we're not going for the right goals, it's a legislative problem. So describing these things out to people helps them develop a shared language, a shared mental model about what is happening. And that is ultimately what helps us live in the same reality. What I really like to see happen is a coalition forming of stakeholders with tokens, of people that are acting professionally in the ecosystem, want to get stuff done, and agree on a common plan of how we think things should be done. And sets out this list of objectives that they want to commonly achieve: developer experience, user experience, marketing, business development, have a great economy. Set out these goals and then agree on a rough plan of how we want to do this. And we can recruit people that are already active in the ecosystem, teams that are active in the ecosystem, but also people that now get inspired again and say, hey, this is actually shaping up to be a real governance system, not just these first few baby steps, but maybe the next evolutionary step. It's a long journey, right? And then some people are scared and say, yeah, but what if we don't agree with the plan? But that's the great thing about OpenGov, because it does not need to be the exclusive plan. It is one plan and a group of people that want to get this done. And then there can happen other stuff in parallel. It does not need to be unified, but you can still have a unified plan and bringing it into execution. So forming a coalition, getting people together, and what would be really great to see is to have just a lot of voters saying that this is a good idea. This is also sending a signal of strength if you have voters participating. If you have a low participation rate, people are unhappy, you have more random decisions, you have a decision here and that, and they might be contradicting. But what you actually want to have is ideally something where parts are working together, where you have a resilient system that rewards contributing good value. This creates reliability. And if you have a reliable governance, people can develop trust, they can have confidence, and you have something that actually moves into a direction where it achieves the common goals of everyone. I put out a thing, it's called based budgeting, and the idea is how can we pay for good stuff in the ecosystem and stuff that follows a plan. So right now we're working to write a manifesto that sets out the goals, reach out to teams in the ecosystem, talk with people, ask them, would you like to take responsibility of this if everyone would agree to that? And set up maybe like units, and it doesn't have to be units of control, it can be, but it can also be people that coordinate. And once we have that, we can basically present a plan where we have teams set up, they agree on a structure, they agree on goals, and then they even come up with a budget. And then we can start going to Wales and say, hey, do you want to support this activity? We have a budget, we have a plan. Would you like to support this? And the idea is to really start a movement of bringing everything into more coherence, into more coordination, and follow a big idea than just having individual votes where everyone is fighting against each other. We want good governance. At the same time, we want to be careful about reintroducing problems that we had in the past, like too much accumulation of power, ineffective structures, single points of failure, right? So we want to avoid those things. But you still want organization. So this is the challenging part. It's the interesting part. Personally, I think developer experience is the most important thing. Especially, I don't know, Web3 developers. How many Web3 developers do you have? We have so much more Web2 developers. And in the coming years, I think the lines will blur and more developers will onboard. So the market for future developers in crypto is much bigger than the market for existing developers. If we have great developer experience, great documentation, great tooling, lots of infrastructure, it's just easy and fun and powerful to build something on Polkadot. You increase the chance that people are trying it out on a hackathon and produce something super interesting and just decide to stay here. And so building for that market of future developers, offering a great developer experience for them, I think is super crucial just to get more apps in the ecosystem started. And then sometimes you try something out in university or in a hackathon, and then 2 or 5 years later you say, I want to build there, right? So it is influential in so many ways. And if you have a great developer experience, you remember it. You say, I really felt supported. And you come back for years and years and years. So sometimes the supply creates the demand. This is when people can actually start to see the utility of that and can start to see the use of that. Just like with smartphones, because today with smartphones, initially it was just a phone, and then we realized, okay, but when it is a computer, we can actually demand more from that computer because it is more powerful. And the supply in apps, then this was when the demand really picked up, because people were exposed to the SDKs with which they can build apps. And similarly, you have different Web3 ecosystems, and the more powerful they are, the more you can demand from them. People start to think, okay, what can I do with this powerful thing? And they will come up with ideas of having, I don't know, an AI coprocessor or storage, or a different way of how you do consensus, or just you are a company, financial company with very specific compliance rules, and you need a very powerful framework that allows you to implement your specific compliance rules. And so you look around on the market and you see like maybe 2 free frameworks that really offer you a powerful and affordable way to actually get that stuff done. A lot of us felt that core time is an essential development right now, where we're basically saying we're making it easier for developers to get started in running a parachain, in not having to acquire a full year of slot lease, but which is essentially like you're renting a CPU for a full year. And instead we allow you to just rent the CPU for a month, or maybe just like a few seconds here and there, or you say you want to rent 5 CPUs for your machine. And it's here now, it's available, and it's much more flexible now to build your own chain for very cheap. You can test out stuff, you can launch it immediately if you want. It's no longer a month-long process, but you can get set up in a day. In one way, you can say there is always a constitution. There can be an unwritten constitution, so we're just doing things and we have an agreement on how we do things. It's just the way things are. This is our constitution right now. Now, there can be a written constitution. I don't think it's strictly necessary, but what it allows you to do is if you write out the things that are happening, you can start to reflect on them. We can maybe see, does it make sense, or is there obvious errors, is there gaps, or do we see inefficiencies? And it allows us to understand what is our consensus. And it's also a constitution in a way is also a great way to onboard people, because this is something you can show to them and you can say, this is how we do things. So it's an onboarding tool. It is a way to reduce the complexity, because you look at everything that's happening and maybe you see Twitter or you see this website, but it's overwhelming in its complexity. If there is a conflict and you have maybe an established practice of this is how you did it the last 100 times, you can go to that and you say, this is how we did it the last 100 times. Or if you disagree and you say, yeah, but times are changing and this is no longer accurate, you can have a constitutional debate where you say, okay, maybe we want to change that rule. The great thing about the constitution is it allows you to focus on this reliability, where if change is happening, it is happening only as fast as it needs to happen. If things are very established, you don't want to overthrow them very quickly. You want to really think about why did they get so established? And if we want to replace them, we need to replace them with something better. So it shouldn't be something that you just throw out and say, it will become good. You need to really spend time to make it better. So a constitution makes things slower in the way that you only do the change that makes sense at that point in time. First of all, we need to agree on what is the purpose of OpenGov and what are our objectives. You could state as a mission statement, Polkadot is the best way to build Web3. And if you agree on a mission like that, and you agree on the objectives, this is very important, because then every decision you put to OpenGov, you can ask, how does this help our objectives? Sometimes we tend to get very much in our heads about how we would like things happening. So I think it's important also to see what is important right now. There is more that connects us than divides us, especially if you had to take the journey to discover Polkadot. You first had to understand crypto. You had to understand that there's multiple ecosystems. You had to dig through them and at some point discover Polkadot and make the decision that is a good ecosystem where you want to participate. So in a lot of ways, we are already aligned. Then we have disagreements about, is this path of execution better or is this path of execution better? I've come up with one rule for myself where I'm saying, if people are working, don't stop them. If they're doing really bad, stop them. But in many ways, people are working and I say, I'm not sure, this sounds like a bad idea to me. But if I'm not super convinced that it's a bad idea, I just let them work, because I can be wrong. You don't see everything that they're on. They're their own human being. So you don't understand all their thinking. And they can be right in many ways, or they inspire someone else to do better. When money is on the line, it's a little bit different. Then there needs to be accountability. But in general, if someone is doing something, don't stop them. Just let them do and figure it out and learn on the way.